With the recent medical intervention that's happened with the entire planet a couple years ago, it's creating leaky cells and it's leaking cytokines, right? And so those cytokines is the start, kind of the second start of the inflammation process. So if we've got all these leaky cells, you want to be fasting so you can either repair them, or if they can't be repaired, they're too far gone, your body tells you to get rid of them. So if you're dealing with inflammation and maybe you stopped, you're on a low inflammatory diet, you're still dealing with it, you might have all these cells that are left in your body that just leaking the inflammation signal.
Behind the story.
Welcome back to another edition of Behind the Story. Today, I'm joined by Dan Esposito, creator of the Undo Method. After battling autoimmune issues and multiple chronic pain diagnoses, Dan is committed to healing himself naturally, and the results were so strong, he returned to elite competition as a national champion sprinter. Today, we're going to be talking about pain, recovery, and what it really takes to rebuild your body after you've been diagnosed with a life-threatening ailment. Let's get into it. Dan, welcome.
Johnny, thank you so much. I appreciate you having me on your show.
My pleasure. Thank you for being so gracious with your time. And let's get right to the heart of it. From a personal perspective, talking about you, Dan, what did your life look like before chronic pain entered the picture?
Life was great before chronic pain. Was handsome, young, mobile. I was a great dancer. It was my superpower when I went out to the nightclub. I didn't even need to talk to women. It was, I had all this fluid movement. I was a professional football player. I had 4 contracts in the NFL. Didn't last a full season anytime, but, made my dad really proud. He's been bragging on me since, for the last 20 years now. And, I was in the banking industry. I was doing very well with Washington Mutual. And then that mortgage business ended. And then kind of the beginning of it, I was still playing sports. I was still playing rough touch football, doing all sorts of stuff. And then when I started this other business and right before my first son was about to be born, everything just started going south. Like I started getting stiff and I'm like, why am I getting stiff? I'm always the most flexible guy on any team or group of friends or whatever I was doing. And then all of a sudden I'm losing this mobility. And I thought it was just like a passing thing at first. I was like, I just, I haven't been working out as much or something. I couldn't figure out why it happened, but, not having that information, I just kind of let it go. And then I was like, my hamstring started hurting and I couldn't really run much. And I was like, well, I'm just going to let it rest, which is one of the worst things you can do, like long term when you have just when you're healthy or when you have chronic pain. And things got progressively worse and worse and worse and worse. And then I was like, this is enough. I got to figure this out.
And that must be one of the hardest things to deal with as an athlete, somebody being kind of like a Superman, for
Yeah.
lack of a better word. And then all of a sudden to feel compromised, that must have been more adversity to deal with than playing football, for example.
Yeah. Movement was my superpower, right? I was strong, fast, and flexible. Like, I wasn't always an athlete. I was always athletic my whole life. I didn't start playing football till I was a senior in high school. So like the loss of football, didn't really bother me. I was still, I was in it for the movement. I'm in it for the competition. Um, it was really the turning point was when my second son was about to be born. I was diagnosed with degenerative arthritis, fibromyalgia, frozen shoulder, restless leg, spina bifida occulta. I was a 4 joint replacement candidate and yes, 265 pounds and life was terrible. I wasn't able to serve my family, right? Like I think that's kind of what we want to do as men is be useful either to our family, to our coworkers, our friends. We need to find our little niche so we have a place. And I lost all of that. I became this anxious, depressed, just, a shell of who I was before. And yeah, there were no answers out there. And even when I would talk to my surgeons, they were like, your muscles are tangled. I'm like, well, what does that mean? Like it didn't really give me anything to be able to look for, but by the grace of God and, the universe directed me in certain ways where I kind of just fell forward into figuring these, or really just asking the right questions, which, made me research. And, I was psychotic about it, like learning about the body and learning about chronic pain and any condition that could possibly be contributing to chronic pain. I researched that. And, I basically came down to five things that are happening in the body plus diet and hydration. So it's really, seven different key factors that are really driving chronic pain. And the funny thing is one creates the other, and then that creates the one that just created it. And it just becomes this vicious cycle of things that are going on in your body that, unless you know how to help the body remove them, they just keep building on top of one another. It just becomes like this soup of mess in your soft tissue and in your fascia. And when that happens, everything hardens up. A lot of these problems are actually proteins that are hard, and then they start rubbing up against your pain receptors, and your pain receptors are all over your body, and they're aggravating them constantly, sending signals to your brain. So now your brain is overworked and anxious, and you find yourself talking fast too much, and you're like, I got to slow down, but you can't because this anxiety is happening. So I just kind of became annoying at the same time. It was tough, man. I mean, it was like 10 years of my life that I lost. Not completely. I mean, a lot of good things happened along the way, but it was every movement, and even not moving was me negotiating with chronic pain, and not just a little bit of pain. It felt like my whole body was on fire internally.
What was it like mentally for you when you realized after the diagnosis and knowing your track record that this was not going to be a temporary setback, that this was going to be life going forward? What was that like mentally?
Yeah, so I got the diagnosis of fibromyalgia first from my chiropractor, and I don't even know if I ever heard of it until then. So um I didn't even research it then. I was just like, oh, it just means I'm stiff. I didn't really understand it. And then a year or so later, when I got my last two shoulder surgeries, I was diagnosed with degenerative arthritis. And I was like, this doesn't make sense to me. I know I'm not degenerating, right? It's like, what I was still strong. I mean, I was, really strong. And, I didn't really look like my body was falling apart. It was just inside there was all this pain. And so I just didn't believe in the diagnosis. And along the way, I had gotten other diagnoses, like, my left elbow was hurting and the doctor told me it was wear and tear. And I'm like, well, I'm right-handed. So why doesn't my right elbow hurt? Right. Like none of it was like adding up. And I just kind of, right before my son was born, it's like 3 months before he was born, and I'm 53, he's 8. So I'm an older dad. His mom's quite younger than me as well, 265. And I was like, okay, I'm going to fix this. I said it out loud. The universe heard me. I didn't know where I was going. I made a couple wrong moves at the beginning, but along the way, it just became easier and easier. It's kind of like reading a playbook, a football playbook, right? You look at it the first time, you're like, I'm never going to figure this out. And that's really how I felt jumping into it. And anybody who might jump into this as well and kind of follow my lead, um, they're going to need to rewind and listen and Google terms and, really kind of dig down. I mean, I make it pretty easy, but there's words that you don't hear and you don't have any conceptualization around them. And so I was just in a complete 360 of trying to figure out which direction I was supposed to go. But, everything that is in my program and in the supplement that I created, there's so many studies out there that backs up but the mechanism of action. Like my whole thing is, what is the mechanism of action? What is actually happening in the body when you do something like breathe through your nose or do grounding or acupuncture or take a supplement like bee propolis or pineapple powder? So when you start learning what these mechanisms of action are, you can't deny that science. It's not science based on studies. It's science based on observation. Like you're watching these things happen to a fibrin, to collagen, to oxidative stress. So we know that these things work. And honestly, I mean, just for example, I had a dental appointment because I had some plaque come out of my teeth because the COVID, I had to go to the dentist for two sessions. And I had just started taking pineapple powder, which is an enzyme that is used. It's really bromelain, but it's used for commercial meat tenderizing to get rid of the fibrosis in farm animals. And I just stumbled across this one day. I was like, holy cow. And I had like a tear come out of my eye. So I was like, that's fibrosis. Yeah, that's what I'm trying to break down. But I didn't even really understand fibrosis at that point. But I started taking this supplement, and within a couple weeks, this plaque came out of my teeth. And I went to the dentist, and she's like, it's going to cost you $1,000 to do a deep cleaning. And this is like 3, 4 days before Christmas. I didn't want to spend $1,000 on my teeth. And I have no cavities. Like, I have healthy teeth, but
Right.
my father has false teeth. So I was like, okay, I don't want to become my dad. I want to hopefully hang on to my teeth. And so I was like, all right, fine, let's go ahead and do it. But I said, isn't there like an enzyme or something you can spray on me first and I can come back and it'll weaken? No, 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 no. And this is the doctor that owns the practice. And I said, oh, shoot. And I was like, all right. So she sends in the tech, and I said, hold on a second, because I'm telling everyone to like advocate for their own health. And I'm here sitting in the chair making a decision on my health without doing any research. So I real quickly took out my phone. I Googled dental plaque, NIH, National Institute of Health, enzymes. And then 30 studies came up, and it just was right there. Like, you can't deny it. And so it was the enzyme that I was taking, drinking, that I was helping to break up the fibrosis in my body that was actually degrading the plaque as well in my
Mm,
mouth. And so I know it's kind of gross to have plaque in your mouth, but
yeah, it's
that's what
quite nasty.
happened. Yeah. Yeah, and so a lot of those things just sort of, I found out about the pineapple powder just because I was on a work trip where we qualified with one of our suppliers, and everyone got food poisoning. And I was like, gosh, wonder why everybody got food poisoning. And I said, maybe it was the pineapple. And it was the first thing I thought of for some reason. They had to have served pineapple. I had to qualify for the trip. I had to be in this business. And for all of this to happen, and then something inside of me that I heard, I don't know, said pineapple contains bromelain. I don't know how I knew that. It just was it felt like it was delivered to me. I got to be honest with you. And I was an atheist before this, like, for real. There are even 2 scriptures in the Bible that I specifically looked at where I was like, see, there can be no God because of these 2 things. Both of them have massive implications in chronic pain. And it's don't eat swine and don't mix linen and wool. And you're like, what do you mean don't mix linen and wool? I haven't heard that one. When you mix linen and wool, the frequency of the fabric becomes 0. Your body has a frequency of about 85 megahertz. So because there's a lower frequency, it's stealing electrons from your body, causing oxidative stress, as well as what the pig is causing, which is an event called glycation. It's like a gummy film. So now we're wearing all these polyester clothes. Not me, this is organic cotton, but we're wearing all these polyester clothes, and we're constantly making ourselves sicker, like every second of the day, just very slightly. And we're sleeping in the beds,
Mhm.
that are foam, these memory foam beds, and nobody's able to sleep. And they're blaming this. They're saying you're not sleeping is causing all the other things. It's like, no, 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 no. You're not sleeping because of
Because
these
of
other
the other
things.
things.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. I don't want to get too far into it. I just feel like the modern medical system is all turned around. Like,
Of course,
everything that I hear and everything that I know in the studies is just like, you have us walking backwards. Like, we're not, you're not helping us move forward. And so, yeah, so it's, the solution I created, the program is 100% natural. Like, there's no peptides or, drugs or anything like that.
if I may, Dan, before
Yeah.
we're going to talk about your program and the supplement, the undo method, but I
Yeah.
want to back up for a bit because something you said triggered something in my head. You being an athlete and myself, one of the things as athletes that I think we do is we're used to bumps and bruises and nicks and knacks and whatnot. And I wonder how much of that weighed into your thinking in the beginning where you're thinking, "Oh, I just need to ice, or I just need to or whatever." And also, if you have fibromyalgia, you know what that is. But for somebody listening that may not know what it is, but are having the symptoms that you possibly were kind of maybe blowing off, talk a bit about that. I think that would be really helpful.
Yeah. So at the beginning, just, being an athlete, you just think surgery, 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 right? Like, I didn't do much recovery in so here's the thing. I played 1 year of high school football. I played, 4.5, well, I redshirted. So I was in college for like 5 years. I didn't start till the third game of my senior season. And then when I got to the NFL, I mean, I'm a Division II running back coming into, I'm like last guy on the bench. I'm getting
Yep.
hardly any
Yeah.
reps. You know what I mean? So I knew that the doctors were wrong trying to blame it on my athletic career, because there are guys that have played from Pee Wee to 15 years in the NFL that don't have what I had.
Right.
Right. And so it can happen that way. I mean, trauma continuously all the time. That's why running backs have the shortest careers, because they're getting hit the most. And every time you have a physical stress, you have an inflammatory response, right? The cells get compromised. They give off a little bit of this signaler that starts the whole inflammation cycle that has an end point to it, right? It's not your body attacking itself, it's healing itself, right? It's the byproduct of too much inflammation. Just like if you drink too much water, you're going to hurt yourself. Too much inflammation is going to not serve you. So I just didn't, yeah, surgery. I mean, I've had 15 surgeries. So 5 shoulder, 3 knee surgeries. 2 of them were like scopes. One was a torn ACL. But I think that ACL happened because I had so much tightness in my leg that it was pulling me a little bit off. So when I took that step, I was playing football at 36, took that step and it just gave on me. It wasn't a hit, did nothing like that. So yeah, yeah.
Knowing that. So what were some of the things that you tried in the beginning that didn't work? That way people listening could also avoid those mistakes.
Yeah. So, when I decided to start, I was at the gym, I'm trying to stretch, and I realized that, okay, my muscles are just really tight, it seems. And I thought maybe I'm just not hydrated well enough. And so I was drinking a lot more water, but it turns out it was really bad water. It's the cheap acidic water that comes in plastic water bottles. And I didn't realize how actually damaging that is for you. But like, a fibrin, which is a blood clot, which is, fibrin, fibrosis, fibromyalgia, right? But fibromyalgia is like an unknown, they call it pain processing disorder.
Mhm.
It's a mixture of a bunch of things, is chronic pain, because doctors can't see these things physically under imaging. So they just make guesses based on tests that they do that are physical, right? They're not drawing blood. They can't find a fibromyalgia virus. You know what I mean? So the first thing I did was try to stretch. And for a year, I would stretch and I would feel it come apart a little bit. And then the next day, it's right back. And that's because a fibrin is like a bungee cord, right? So you're
Mm.
pulling it. It's like, nah, I want to be right back here. Right. And so it goes back. And a fibrin is the result of inflammation. And I think it's really important if I can just tell everybody what inflammation is, because it's the root of all disease and everybody should have a real grasp on what it actually is.
And even positive things cause inflammation, like exercise.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Little micro tears from exercising. And then it causes something else, but we'll talk about that too. So, your cell and your whole body's made of cells, so they have inflammation potential, right? So anytime the cell wall is stressed, it gives off a signal to start the inflammation process. Now, the cell wall must be compromised of a lipid membrane of 1 to 1 omega-6 to omega-3, right? And that's your fishes and stuff like that. So if you're not eating fish, you're way out of ratio. The average American is omega-6 at 15 to 1. So the highly inflammatory signaler is making up the majority of all the cells in our body. So if you're suffering from like neuroinflammation, a thought could spur inflammation in the brain, like a negative thought, and cause this inflammatory response. And every time there's inflammation, it goes the cytokines, C-reactive proteins. It alerts the white blood cells. That's who you need to attack. Then the glue forms to stop the bleeding or stop the danger. Collagen weaves into there, and you need 8 ingredients for healthy collagen, guaranteed. 90% of people are highly deficient in the cofactors that give the instructions to the amino acids to do their job. And that's copper, zinc, manganese, and vitamin C, right? Without those 4 cofactors, these guys don't know what to do, and they just become glue or super weak and fragile, and they're not serving you, and they're causing more stiffness, because every inflammatory response is followed with a collagen response. Anyway, so white blood cells do their job. They kill the problem. they retreat, blood cells come back into the area. Now, a problem can be that now that fibrin collagen matrix doesn't let blood through, right? Because it was so much inflammation. And so now you're causing atrophy of the soft tissue. Well, what's supposed to happen later, and this is another biblical thing, is you should be fasting because at about 20 hours of fasting, so intermittent fasting will not get the job done. At 20 hours of fasting, these enzymes release from your liver because they're starved, because they're normally digesting food, and they're like, we need protein. So they go looking for these misfolded protein aggregates of collagen and fibrosis and, other things that are in your body. And then that is completes the healing cycle. Now, the problem with most people is they keep doing the stuff that's causing the inflammation. And 75% of our food is highly processed. That's inflammatory on every single bite. The water we're drinking with the microplastics, I mean, there's billions of them in a water bottle. Every little piece of plastic that goes into your bloodstream is going to be met with an inflammatory response of some kind. So now, if your cell wall isn't structured right, of a 1-to-1 or at worst 4-to-1 ratio, that inflammatory response is going to be way over exaggerated. So, and then the omega sixes is the seed oils. That's where it's coming from. Yeah,
Dan, what was the first real sign of progress that gave you the hope that
yeah.
you could sort this out
Yeah.
naturally?
Yeah, yeah. So because I was under so much inflammation, I had so much lymph, right? I was puffy. My lymphatic system was super slow. And that's because that's what the white blood cell is given off, right? It gets into your interstitium, then eventually to your lymphatic system, and then hopefully it goes away. But if you look on my Instagram, you can see kind of low down, my face was like this. I was just filled with lymph. All my body was just filled with lymph. And I was like, gosh, I'm still working out. I can still feel the muscle under there. But I'm like, and why am I so just puffy? Right. And
Yeah.
then obviously I later found that out. But there was a friend of mine, I was at a networking event and she comes up to me. She goes, Dan, why are you limping? At the time, my both my knees were like the size of softballs for like 8 months. I couldn't get the inflammation to go down, and it was painful to walk. And so I told her, I said, my knees are swollen. She said, why don't you rub some castor oil on your knees? And I looked at her like she was crazy. I was like, what are you talking about, castor oil? I thought she was trying to sell me like essential oils, right? And then, but I had started foam rolling and I was telling everybody, it was the only thing I was doing, foam rolling and stretching. And I was telling everyone, you need to foam roll. Like something was happening, I thought, because I could hear it cracking and I'd get a little looseness. But she's looking at me the same way, telling me I need to do the castor oil. And I'm like, okay, like she's serious. I'm going to take this advice for the first time in my life. I'm going to take advice from somebody. So I was raised like a wild wolf. So I went home, I put the castor oil on my knees, about a shot glass worth. And then I went to bed. The next day, the swelling in my knees was completely gone. And then I started blowing stuff out of my face for like 3 days. And I was like, now instead of maybe having 1 or 2 clear days a month, I was like had half of the month clear. I seemed clear minded.
How did you take the oil, Dan? Was it oral? Like
Just
rub it?
rubbed it on my knees, rubbed it on my lymphatic, areas, my lymph nodes. And
Yeah.
you want to heat it up a little bit, not too hot because it's a thick, or if you can get into a sauna, that's even better. But it's fast acting. I mean, it's funny because African women have been using castor oil for their hair forever. So
Yeah.
yeah, so
They use it
so
in the Caribbean where I'm from. That's why I'm familiar with it. They put it
yeah,
on their hair.
yeah.
Yeah.
So a few years ago, science just realized we had another system in our body called the glymphatic system. It's connected to the lymphatic system. It's responsible for hair health. So
Man,
what they're doing is cleaning out all the junk, right? All the lymph, all the waste product to create a healthier hair. So it's like women have had it right for many, many years. So yeah,
I operate with the theory that a lot of the things we need to heal us are already there in nature,
it says
waiting
in
for
the
us
Bible.
to be
Yeah.
discovered. We just have not discovered it there. But I have this weird belief that, it's there.
Yeah.
It's in nature. We just haven't discovered it yet.
Yeah.
Let's get into the undo method. Let's
Okay.
let's let's get into it and talk
Yeah.
about that.
Yeah.
So obviously I don't know what it is. So talk to me in plain language. What's the undo method?
Absolutely. So it's two pieces, right? It's a supplement I created called Flexibility Fuel. And so what's in Flexibility Fuel is your essential amino acids, which is going to help repair and restore muscle synthesis, create healthier muscles, help your body create healthier muscles. But then there's a blend of compounds on there like B-propolis, alpha lipoic acid, the enzymes that we're talking about. So the key pain makers, these are supplements that have been shown in multiple studies to add an electron to the problem, right? Thus cleaving it. Then the body can actually break it down. A fibrin, scar tissue, is called an insoluble protein, or it's called scar tissue. Both of those seem permanent, but it's not insoluble. It's only insoluble until it's cleaved at the chemical bond. It's just an electron donation. Pineapple powder, the proteolytic enzymes in pineapple powder, is donating an electron to this fibrin, the fibrosis, causing it to break. Now you can mechanically now break that thing open, and you've got these mechanoreceptors and other things in your body that can now slowly eat that thing up, right? So it's like an axe and then sandpaper, right? It's not all just going to fall apart at once. So it's once you clip it, takes a little while for that area to, a few weeks or so to start feeling better. So that's basically the concept of each one of the supplements. So I've identified the offenders as inflammation, which leaves behind a fibrin, poor collagen synthesis. Every muscle fiber in your body is wrapped in what's called a endomysium. It's a collagen-based protein around every muscle fiber, and it has to be built correctly where it becomes glue and you can't collide your muscles across one another. Oxidative stress, right? That's having too many free radicals in the body and not enough stable pairs, and oxalates, which if you're juicing spinach, drinking a lot of black tea, juicing beets, doing beetroot powder, almond milk, it's pretty high in chocolate and potatoes as well, but it's a little nanoparticle that creates kidney stones. But when you're breaking the leaf open and juicing it or drinking almond milk, it leaks out through your gut because it's so small and then starts building we're called oxalates in your soft tissue. They're literally kidney stones like everywhere in your body, and they can get into your eyes, your mouth. Women have to get hysterectomies because of them. There's a very simple cleanse that I put in the undo method. That's just lemonade, calcium citrate, magnesium citrate. And they just literally, when you do it, it's high dose lemonade. It's not, like regular lemonade. What it does is it breaks the electrostatic interaction. So it's being held together almost like a magnet would. So it starts kind of falling apart. And then the calcium citrate grabs it and then they come out through your skin. So the first time I ever did it, it looked like I had sand all over my shoulders, my chest, certain areas. And then eventually the last one that I did, a huge one came out of my chest. It took
Mm.
about 2 weeks to pass, felt like a razor blade. And then when it finally passed, I mean, it literally looked and felt like a pumice stone. They're called diamond dust. They're super, super hard and super sharp. And they cause all sorts of tearing inside the body. So one of the mistakes I made was to go to Netflix for my health advice. And there's these couple documentaries on juicing. And I thought, well,
Mhm.
this is the superfood that they're all talking,
Yeah.
which it's
Yeah.
not.
Yeah. Well,
But it was damaging me because plants don't really want to, always be eaten. They have defenses and they're in the form of a chemical.
question in regards to the supplement, because I'm a big believer in prevention.
Hmm.
Obviously, it's for somebody, you're saying it's for somebody that is dealing with fibromyalgia and this sort of pain. But for somebody like me, I don't
Yeah.
have it.
Yep.
Is that a supplement that a normal person should incorporate into their protocol to
Yeah, let me
avoid
hit that first, but
possibly?
let me
Yeah, go
say
ahead.
the second part of the undo method. The other part is the chronic pain playbook. So in conjunction with the supplement, or you can do them separately, but the whole method is both. The playbook is me talking about exactly what these pain makers are, what food sources they're coming from, how genetics can affect it, the chemical bonds that hold them together. So you know who your enemy is intimately, and so now you can defeat the enemy. And so it's 100% science based, right? All the studies are out there supporting all this stuff. And so that's supplementation food, and then I go into the practices like, why is hugging a tree beneficial to us, right? Because now like, oh gosh, look at how many benefits, and here's the science behind these benefits. You don't feel so dumb hugging a tree or going out grounding with your shoes off, or make sure that you're intentionally breathing through your nose, which I have a problem with. And that's why I talk so fast sometimes. I got to remind myself to do that. And the science behind that is it takes L-arginine, creates nitric oxide. Nitric oxide doesn't let fibrins to form. So if you're constantly not breathing through your nose, the chemical bonds of the fibrin, the clot, can set in more easily. If you're breathing through your nose, it disrupts that chemical attraction. So that's basically what the undo method is. It's
The combination of it.
yeah, it's definitely a combination. But you can do them separately. It's a really good listen. It's a video series that I did. And then the supplement works super quick. It gives you, and so we talk about preventative. It's an essential amino acid based supplement.
Hmm.
There are 4 categories of foods. They're essential. If you have these, they create all the other stuff your body needs. Your essential nutrients, essential minerals, essential fats, and then essential amino acids. Most people are deficient in their essential amino acids, and that helps with protein, resynthesis of muscles, ton of neurocognitive benefits as well. And then the compound. So if you're going to eat the standard American diet, it's 100% preventative. Like if you haven't gotten sick yet, if
It's
you're
just
going to
a matter of
continue to,
time.
yeah, it's literally a matter of time.
Somebody asked me that the other day. They said, "How have you gone your life without no surgeries, no major illnesses, never in the hospitals, and yada yada?" And I said, and I said, it's because I'm a pain in the ass when it comes to eating. It's something I'm struck by with you, Dan. You're so knowledgeable about these different nutrients in the food and stuff. I wonder if this has been the same for you as it has been for me. The more I know, the worse I've gotten over the years when it comes to food, to the point where friends don't want me to go out to eat with them because I can't even really go out to eat. It's so hard. Or somebody's asking me, and they don't understand it's because of what little I know, because I think I know a lot, but in listening to you, I realize I don't know that much. But in the little that I actually do know, it's hard for me to go to certain places and sit there and eat knowing what I know. How hard is that for you with what
So
you know?
yeah, so I'm the same way with water, especially water, right? Like I won't drink out. I mean, I'll rarely drink out of plastic. It's all glass water bottles now. But then, you don't always have access to it. So you're like, okay, am I going to drink out
What
of
are
the
you gonna
tap?
do? Yeah,
Like
yeah.
I know I have filters, a whole house filtration system, and I've got a charcoal filter and all that kind of stuff. And I still am like, oh no, what am I really drinking here? But I've made a rule for myself. It's like anything that's in my home is going to be good. And if we want something bad in the home, we have to make a special trip to get it. When I go out to eat, unless I got 2 kids and, I'm 53, I don't go out that much anymore. But when I go out to eat, I'm just trying to make the best choice. It's like, I mean, and even when you make that best choice, you're like, oh, I'll have a salad with tuna. I'm like, hey, was the tuna wild caught or was it, farmed? And I'm sure
Yeah.
there's all sorts of glyphosate on the, spinach leaves and, whatever else I'm eating. But yeah, I don't make a big deal about it when I go out of the house. It's really in the house. I mean, I get my meat delivered. I get my raw milk delivered. I get my farm raised eggs delivered. I got buddies who hunt. They bring me all parts, and so I'm pretty stocked up with stuff. But yeah.
We're similar in that. For example, I don't eat fish in America. I just don't. I only eat fish when I'm back in the Caribbean at home
Oh
because I'm
gosh.
literally watching the fishermen come in. Or, when I'm in other places, I go to a butcher and buy meat. I don't go to a grocery store. I just
Yeah.
don't do that. And the funny thing, I'm with you when it comes to not having bad things in the house because sometimes I'll be home and we all have our vices. Nobody's perfect. My vice, I'm not ashamed to say,
Tell me.
is cinnamon toast crunch.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Me too. I love cinnamon
Worst
toast crunch.
thing. It's the worst thing. There's an app called Yucca, and it's a Yucca app. You scan the barcode of things, and it gives you the breakdown. Out of 100, with 100 being the best, Cinnamon Toast Crunch is less than 10. And it even has carcinogen-causing things in
Sure.
it.
Yeah.
And even with that, once in a while,
Well,
I'll get it, but I
yeah.
tell my wife, "Babe, don't buy it." She's like, "Why? You always want." I said, "Because if it's in the house, it's too accessible. It has to be where I have to make a special trip to the market to get it,
Yeah.
because then I'll really start thinking, do I really want to make this run? No, and most times I'll talk myself out of it, but
It's a great way around that is just have hard boiled eggs around. Just keep them in the
that's my
fridge and they're
breakfast.
like, okay. Like, I know I want this, but let me have a little bit of, what do you
Something
call it?
else?
Just let me try the egg and see if that satisfies me, if I'm still craving something. Because, a lot of times a hunger signal isn't that you're hungry, it's that you're lacking nutrients,
Right.
right? Your body's craving nutrition. So we instead get a muffin that's sprayed with folic acid and glyphosate and, whatever other, chemicals in there. I mean, the food preservatives are funny because what is a food preservative? It's an anti bacteria. Well, you're eating that and it's going into your gut that's got so much beneficial bacteria, starts killing the bacteria in your gut. And now you have digestive issues and stuff like
Yes,
that. So there's just a lot of bad food out there, but there's a fair amount of good food out there that if you just stayed in that lane, you're going to
you'd
stay
be
healthy.
okay.
In fact, as a free resource on with a platform that hosts my program, I have what's called the world's greatest shopping list. It's a spreadsheet that has the four essentials and tabs. And then what those essentials are, the food sources, meat and chicken, fish, shellfish, vegetables, fruits, legumes, and nuts. And it says how much you need of each one to hit the RDI. And then you start realizing, like, one, the vegetables can barely get me there. It's like 20 cups of spinach you need to hit like the vitamin, the
Yeah, it's
iron.
not possible. You can't eat that much for what we need in nutrients.
Yeah. And so, but you also realize that you're so far off. But really, if you're eating liver, it's got a lot of that stuff in it that it hits so many of the micronutrient and essential amino acid categories, right? And so if you can see some of the food choices, you're like, all right, let me have blueberries instead of bananas. Blueberries is an antioxidant. Bananas can cause a histamine response. So it's like, let me just shop better. And then you start having a little better relationship with food because food is the girlfriend that keeps cheating on you, right?
Hmm.
And you keep going back to her and she keeps treating you the same way. And you realize it every time you fast. And then you put that food back in your face and you're like, I did it again. And now I got head fog and anxiety. And then maybe it wasn't the first bite. Maybe it was like all the way at the bottom of the ice cream. And then next day you've got no motivation. And so I really had to cut out ice cream. Ice cream was my vice. I've got two vices now, and 5 hour energy is one of them. And so, yeah, but other than that, I'm pretty good. But I got rid of the ice cream. Yeah.
I want to ask you about fasting, but before I ask you about that, because you mentioned something about it earlier that I want to clarify. But going back to the undo method, what does progress look like in the first 30 days of someone that's doing it correctly?
Yeah. So, I mean, everyone's going to be a little different. And I especially know that with my supplement because some people will take it and in the first day they send me a text like, what the heck is in this stuff? Because you start feeling that
Immediate
loosening up.
response.
They really notice it. You hear the click, you know what I mean? And then you feel the relief in the muscle. It's pretty, quick for some people. And once again, I got to make sure I say this. It's not a treatment or a cure for any disease, right? But then, some people are like 2 weeks in and then they finally start noticing something. I've had a handful of people who have started taking it. We only released it this summer that they didn't even realize that their pain went away until I reminded them, like, hey, how's your shoulder? And they're like, oh, I didn't, it's not, it doesn't, it's fine. Handful of people tell me that they don't really feel anything. But that doesn't mean it's not doing something because what's in there, it's not like it's not going to do the things that those supplements and those compounds are supposed to do. You're just not feeling it.
Yeah,
Right.
feeling
And
it.
that's the case with a lot of supplements. You don't really notice it right away. Maybe something did happen and you weren't attributing it to
That you're
what
not
you've been
aware.
doing. Yeah. Yeah. And then but when you combine that with the method, I mean, the method's a lot of movement and breathing and things like that. And then so for the part of the offenders, the things that are actually causing the pain, like I've got all the stuff in my supplement that donate those electrons or break that electrostatic interaction, right? So you don't have to add more, but I give you foods and other supplements that you can add with it. So just on its own, the supplement, you should kind of feel something by utilizing the method. The method is just really this educational piece. It's a playbook or a toolkit that gives you all the information about, wow, I didn't realize that this food was this damaging to me and it caused this reaction. And I didn't realize that, once again, hugging a tree could actually be beneficial because it's going to help thin the blood and encourage blood flow and get rid of, repair those free radicals the moment you step on the ground, right? So it just gives you a lot of education so you're intentional about your lifestyle rather than just winging it and listen to everybody on Facebook who's got some theory about pain that with no education or research behind it.
Got it.
Yeah.
Going back to fasting, what you mentioned before about people doing it correctly, give us some more detail about that.
Yeah, so there's a bunch of different stages of fasting. So, once you hit about, gosh, I don't completely remember all the specific hours, but once you hit 20 hours is when the process autophagy starts. And autophagy is that release of the enzymes. Then they're going to start looking to clean up and repair all of the misfolded proteins and protein aggregates that are in your body, right? So you got to hit that 20-hour mark, but remember that's when it starts. Just because you hit it doesn't mean you stop there. You let it cook for a while. And then at about 72 hours, you get in this stage called apoptosis. And that's when the cells that cannot be repaired are told to fall apart. And then your body will utilize the good parts of those cells to rebuild new cells. With the recent medical intervention that's happened with the entire planet a couple years ago, it's creating leaky cells and it's leaking cytokines, right? And so those cytokines is the start, kind of the second start of the inflammation process. So if we've got all these leaky cells, you want to be fasting so you can either repair them, or if they can't be repaired, they're too far gone, your body tells you to get rid of them. So if you're dealing with inflammation and maybe you stopped, you're on a low inflammatory diet, but you're still dealing with it, you might have all these cells that are left in your body that just leaking the inflammation signal.
Okay. While you're fasting in this way that you're talking about, are you ingesting anything, water,
Sure.
anything at all?
Yeah, I do it a couple different ways. I'll do water with salt and potassium or
What
no
kind of
salt.
salt?
Sea salt, I get it
Sea
from
salt.
Redmond's. It's from a dry lake bed, so it doesn't have all the mercury and stuff like that in it. And then I will do it with flexibility fuel as well, because now I'm shutting down the noise in the body and I'm really just letting the ingredients in there just get into my bloodstream uninterrupted and do what they do. So those are the two ways that I do it. But I haven't done a dry fast, and the longest I've done was I think 5 days.
Because I was going to ask you if 72 hours was what you were saying, 3 days was the time, or should it be longer?
Yeah, you want to get past 72 hours, at least an hour, because once that process start, like millions of cells can be wiped off the board almost immediately. So you want to push in to at least an hour or so past 72. But there's some, and everyone's different in how their metabolism is going to work and how that's going to happen. So it's safer to go even further. I did 96, 97 hours the other day because I want to make sure I'm getting rid of as much bad cells as I possibly can.
So between 4 and 5 days is what you're
Yeah,
saying.
yeah, for the cell part, but just to get into autophagy and for people who are just starting, that 2.5 to 3 day time frame is a good place to start, but you got to push past that first day. That's the hardest day, right? You feel hungry, you've got that grumbling, you get a little headache, but once you push through that, you're clear headed, you're productive. It's insane. You're like in the matrix.
And being an athlete, what are you doing in those days? Are you just not doing anything? Meaning you're doing your normal life activities, but are you not exercise? What sort of movement would
Yeah.
be okay?
So I go to the gym as normal, but what I do at the gym is different than most people. So even though, 4-time All-American master sprinters, I don't train for sprinting. All I do is go to the gym and I stretch, foam roll, twist my body. I do a little bit of weights, right? I do a little bit of cardio on the spinning bike, but I still have some pain points. Like I still have like a hamstring that's not all the way there. The back of my tricep is a little tight, so am I swinging with the arms. So, but it all comes like every day, like more and more is coming apart. So if I was to train, I'm not sure how I'm going to feel for the next 3, 4 days. So I really do everything I do is very low impact: swimming, spinning bike, and then stretching, a little bit of weightlifting. But I'll do that all the way through the fast.
Okay. So
Yeah.
it sounds as though it's based on the person. Like, well, if whatever they're normally doing, they could probably do, but they may have to make some adjustments based on the intensity or the stress on the body.
I mean, you mean when you're fasting?
Yeah, when you're fasting.
I mean, when you are fasting and everything clears up, you want to do everything. Like you feel
Yeah,
so good. Oh, I'm in a fasting group with some buddies, and one of them's the grandson of the Vikings owner and a three-time All-American lacrosse player. And it's just like, vibing, where everybody's vibing, and they're in Florida as well. So it makes it a little easier to vibe down in Florida. But yeah, man, it's just, I can't explain it. You really have to get into it. And if it's someone that's been dealing with brain fog, they probably haven't felt that way in years. Like they don't even remember like what that clarity feels like. And once you get the clarity back, that's when you recognize the food is the bad girlfriend. And you're like, okay, I know that when I have this hamburger or whatever it is, I have this fog come on me. And
yeah.
so, yeah,
I can definitely attest to that. The best I've ever felt or looked in my life was when I did, at the insistence of my master, my martial arts teacher, a 5-day sort of fast cleanse with raw food. Even the white in my eyes
yeah,
became bright white.
yeah,
It was
yeah.
crazy how clear everything felt, and I've never felt that way in my life. It was the only time I felt that way physically.
Have you cold plunged?
Yeah, I have.
Do you get that same similar feeling, the whites in your eyes? And I feel like my hair stands up better. Like I have
I was
more
gonna
life
say,
in
I
my
feel
hair.
like like I'm losing, you lose the heat on the top of your head. So I feel like it's like almost like a rush to the top of my head to keep me warm.
Maybe that's what it is. Interesting. Okay.
I don't know. I'm
Yeah.
speaking anecdotally, obviously, from my personal experience, not from
I'll
any
research that
scientific
now.
study. But yeah, and then after a while, it um it just became normal. I'll give you a brief story about that, about the cold water. Being from the Caribbean, it was one time my wife and I, we were living in a flat and we did not have hot water. And I just remember going, goodness, I have to take a shower. After the third day, it was my body had adjusted to it to where once we got the hot water back, I couldn't turn it up. I didn't want it.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
the weirdest thing. My body just adjusted to the cold temperature and I was feeling better. Like after I finished showering with the cold water,
Yep.
I was just alive.
Yeah. At the end of every one of my showers, I do 3 deep nasal breaths in under cold water, right?
Mm.
Force myself to get 3 of them in. It's gonna there's some benefit there. It helps you sleep a little bit better.
Hmm.
You're just I don't know, I can't even explain it. I mean, you just have to kinda
Yeah,
kinda
just have to
try it.
feel it.
Yeah, you gotta feel it, right, yeah. It's like the thing, like, when the undo method, it's like, most people only know what it's like to go into pain and not undo it, right? And so it's a very unique experience. And so my partner, I would tell her all the time, I was like, hey, my this clicked today. And she just looks at me like, well, okay, she's 20 years younger than me. So she had, at that point she's starting to get some of it though, and starting to take the flexibility fuel and starting to listen to me finally. So but it's like you tell people things and they just don't even realize it. And so now my buddies at the gym who are taking flexibility fuel, we've got like this little session. Like, yeah, dude, like my shoulder came loose and this, and it's a really fun thing to go through. But at the same time, it's a little challenging. It's not super easy. It's like things are breaking down in your body. Right. Things are coming apart. Your body's got to clear it up. It's using a lot of resources, but it's way better because you're going to feel the pain if you don't do it anyway. So whatever pain is there, you're just like, it's okay because things are coming apart. And I gotten to a bunch of points where I was like, I think I'm just stuck here now. I don't think I'm moving forward. And then all of a sudden it happens again. I'll go for like a week or so and I'm like, I haven't really noticed anything big happen. And so I think, okay, maybe my whole theory was not right. And then it comes apart. And it's just like, as you start doubting yourself along the way, because who am I? I didn't go to medical school. I didn't do pre-med. I got a C minus in college biology. I was focused on sports. And so, but I think with everything that I do, I go in like all the way. I said I was going to play in the NFL. I played 1 year of high school football and made it in 4 contracts in the NFL. I started an energy brokerage with zero energy experience, became one of the top fastest growing companies in Philadelphia. And then I'm going to do the unthinkable or undoable and reverse fibromyalgia and degenerative arthritis. Right. And so there are all these things that like I shouldn't have these capabilities, but if you set your mind to it and you tell the universe that this is what I'm going to do, you can't lie to the universe. It's going to hold you accountable and it's going to help you along the way. Yeah.
Dan, I really enjoyed our conversation. And before I let you go, please, how can people connect with you, get the undo method? Please tell me.
Yeah. So my website is being a little bit tweaked this week. We're putting a new calendar system in there and then this referral system. So it may be under maintenance right now if you go there, but that's undu.me. So undo.me. Or you can go to my LinkedIn bio, which is linkedin.bio/undo method. And it's UNDU. And there you can directly go to either my website or the platform that hosts my program, and then a couple other resources there as well. Yeah,
Thank you,
and then
Daniel.
social media is all undo method, right? Like LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitter or X, Instagram, TikTok. That's probably my biggest following is on TikTok, but it's all UNDUMETHOD.
Thank you, Dan. We'll leave
Yeah.
it there. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Jelani. I really appreciate it.
Of course. If you enjoyed today's conversation, like, subscribe, and share it with friends. See you next time.
Behind the story.